Welcome to our weekly ABBA League magazine show. The teams have already played in the third round last weekend, and it has been a much more balanced one than the second, and after this period only one team hasn't suffered defeat yet. There was a repeat of the last year's Final Four semi-final between Zvezda and Radnički. We witnessed a showdown between the teacher and the pupil when in Novo Mesto Aleksandar Džikić and Duško Vujošević crossed swords. We've also heard from the coach with most trophies in the league, but last but not least, best 5 actions of the round. News: after 2 rounds, already a couple of changes in Igokea's roster. Coach Bajic wasn't satisfied with the input of his 2 foreigners, American Kedrick Mays and Canadian Michael Frazier. They were replaced by Bosnian national team player Nemanja Gordic, who was also a member of last year's winners of the competition, Partizan. Second change was in Zadar. Coach wasn't satisfied with Scoop Jardine, who had only scored 2 points from 10 minutes of play in the first 2 games. Instead of him, they engaged Marko Šutalo, the best scorer for Cherokee last year and also a national team player for Bosnia. Zadar hosted still undefeated Cedevita on home turf, run excellently by Croatia national team coach Jasmin Repeša, who was for the first time this season able to count on previously injured Marko Tomas. The Dalmatians scored first through Andrew Lawrence, but that was followed by a run of 6 consecutive points for the visitors, rounded up by Nolan Smith. Cedevita was soon leading by 9, but the gap was slightly reduced by Ivan Batur. Cedevita was deadly in fast breaks. This one finished by veteran Marino Baždarić. But Zadar replied with 2 3-pointers in a row, courtesy of Ivan Ramljak. 20-14 after the first period, which was rounded up by Jusuf Nurkic. Then a first slightly bigger lead for the visitors in the beginning of the second quarter, answered by Josip Sobin after a good offensive rebound. There were good minutes for Zadar. First Marko Car for 2, followed by a 3-pointer from Ive Ivano, as Zadar closed the gap to just 4 points. Miro Bilan slam dunked to make it 31-26. He was also the last player to score in the first half, which was won by Cedevita by 35-29. The team from Zagreb scored the first 5 points of the second half, thereby equaling their highest lead thus far by 11 points. A new 3-pointer then for Ivan Batur, who finished the game with 9 points. Another 3 from Marko Car meant the gap had been reduced to just 5, but that was quickly answered by Marino Baždarić's 3. After this Tomas's layup, it was +8 for Cedevita, but the home team stayed in the game predominantly by Ive Ivano, Zadar's best scorer of the night with 16. 56-50 for Cedevita at the end of the third period. Jusuf Nurkic opened at the start of the last quarter. In fact, it was his personal best performance in the ABBA League with 15 points. Filip Kraljević instantly replied with 2 of his 7 of the night, but it was clear that Nurkic was unstoppable under the basket. In the middle of the last period, Nolan Smith scored what turned out to be an important 3-pointer, 16 for him in the end. When Ivanov stole the ball, he then reduced the gap to just 3 points, but that was immediately pegged back by Tomas when he scored 3 out of his 7 in the night. One last charge from the home team when Toni Prostran scored to reduce the deficit to 4, but then it was Ante Delaš who hit a 3 to effectively seal the game for the visitors. End result 73-66, a third win for Cedevita and a second defeat for Zadar, who had 21 turnovers in the end. Krka played host to a still undefeated defending champion Partizan and was eager to redeem itself after a heavy defeat against Cedevita in the previous round. It was the visitors who took the first lead through Geoffrey Lauvergne, eventually the best scorer of the night for Partizan with 13 points. Edo Muric then scored 7 in a row for the home team. And then when Jaka Klobuchar made it 9-2, it was time for Vujošević to take his first time out. Didn't have much effect though, as Muric had scored his 9th point of the game very nicely indeed. Right at the end of the first quarter, Malcolm Armstead scored his first points of the game, thereby setting the result to 16-12 after the first 10 minutes of play. Partizan started the second quarter well by scoring 5 consecutive points. Krka led by 4 when Armstead secured his second three-pointer of the game, but it was Partizan who eventually took the first half by the narrowest of margins when Milosavljević scored in the last second. Krka then opened the second half excellently with 11 in a row to reach a lead of 10 points for the first time in the game, while it took nearly 4 minutes for Partizan to score its first basket of the half. But that was then followed by a 6-0 run, rounded up by Bogdanovic's 3. Then first points of the game for Zvonko Buljan, followed by this nice slam dunk from Muric, which made it 40-32. Krka finishing the quarter 6 points in front. The last period started with the best action of the night. After Klobuchar initially missed the shot, Laporli grabbed the rebound and slam dunk to take his team 8 points ahead. Just seconds later, the home team increased their lead to 10 after another offensive rebound. This was a good spell for Krka. Matej Rojc with his three-pointer setting the highest lead of the game by 12. Partizan was still in the game. It had only trailed for 5 points when Bogdanovic scored 3 of his 12 of the night. But the home team restored their hopes of winning when Armstead scored his 4th three-pointer of the evening, less than 3 minutes before the end. Crucial points came from Muric with just 56 seconds to go. He was the game's best scorer with 17, and the most important one in Krka's historic win over the black and white from Belgrade, who shot themselves in the foot by making only 3 of their 20 attempts for 3. 6-time Saba League champion had found itself in a very poor financial state before the new season. There was huge debt, which resulted in FIBA blocking Partizan's account. After much engagement, the Serbian powerhouse somehow managed to put things right, but there's still some unfinished business. The thing that bothers Duško Vujošević the most is the supposed misconception of sports of the Serbian tax office.
Ima se dug prema Marfin banci koji je u velikom.
There's debt towards the banks comprised mostly of interest. We still owe some money to players from last season. But there are new tax burdens also from very strict tax rules. I don't think those rules are helpful to Serbian sport and of sport in the region in general.
Apsolutno neadaptiranih nekoj stvarnoj situaciji u kojoj se nalazi sport u Srbiji, ja mislim i šire na prostoru bivše Jugoslavije.
But Partizan is best known for relying on their own young talent, which is realistically the only way to success for the teams from former Yugoslavia.
Onaj ko radi sa mladima ne može da pogreši. To su talentovani momci koji još uvijek nisu.
You can't go wrong with working with young people. They have talent and have been relatively spared so far from dealing with agents and the more senior players. Our social status also dictates us to select our players in this way, and if this model proves to be successful, that also attracts other young players to join Partizan from Belgrade.
Neka za njih magnetna sila da dođu ti.
In spite of the fact of only 2 players being older than 23 years old, there is still ambition to compete for trophies, which means you have to work better and more from your opponents.
I onda tu neku spremnost
The readiness to be the best come the end of the season is reflected through our intensity and dedication in our style of work. Not everything is ideal, but we try to work hard and as much as we can. We are also careful that off the court we don't destroy everything we build on it.
Da van terena ne rušimo ono što na terenu napravimo.
Notorious for his hefty behavior, the Montenegrin coach explains his temper when coaching games. In his opinion, the reactions to that are exaggerated, but he admits that sometimes he does get carried away.
Nije baš da sam ja toliko strašan, mislim neki put nekontrolisano reagujem.
I'm not such a terrible figure. I may lack control in my reactions, but that only happens if I'm certain that the referees have succumbed to the pressure.
Pod određeni uticaj ili pritisak i prosto smatram da je sport izmišljen zato što pravda ne pobeđuje nigdje drugdje.
I think the reason why sport is so important because justice does not win in real life. I simply cannot stay indifferent to that.
Nisam neko ko to ravnodušno podnosi.
But his hard attitude does get by very well with his players, as they always have only nice things to say about him. To some of them, he resembles a father figure. My wish is for these people to also live well when they stop playing basketball, so when the star extinguishes, they don't become black holes. The most accomplished ABA League coach, a 5 times its champion, pointed out yet another thing in regards to the competition, which he regards as a legal heir to an incredibly strong former Yugoslav league.
To je praktično jedan prostor i kulturni, sportski, jedan jezik i
This is a uniform, cultural, sporting and lingual space. We are practically condemned to working together. This is the least we can do in terms of any kind of progress. Personally, I support everything that stands in place of what has been lost with the decay of the former country.
Razmerama, pa bilo šta što na neki način kompenzuje te lige koje su nestale nestankom te zemlje, je nešto što ima moju podršku.
2,400 people turned up in Skopje to see the game between Budućnost and MZT Skopje, who was, for the first time this season, able to count on Georgi Čekovski. Both had 1 win and 1 defeat prior to this encounter. The first basket was scored by an ex-Budućnost player Nikola Otašević. He started up a 9-0 run for the home team, as the visitors took more than 5 minutes to get going, William Coleman breaking the deadlock for Budućnost. MZT kept going. This is one of their 3-pointers scored by Todor Gečovski, who was the game's MVP in the end with 27 points and 10 rebounds. When the American Kay Davis scored his first 3 of the night, the lead has grown to 15. Vladimir Mihailovic scored his only points of the game at the end of the first quarter to make it 24-11. Then it was Čekovski's turn to hit a 3 for the home team, and the gap was already 16 points. And it was time for a little one-on-one between Jalil Akindele and Todor Gečovski, with the former being slightly more successful, and Budućnost had closed the gap to 9 points. It was a former Krka player Uroš Lučić who scored and raised the home lead to 13. And then Sinovic, with 3 of his 11 points altogether, made sure that MZT was in front by 16 at the end of the first half. Lučić was playing well, raising the bar even higher at the start of the third quarter. But then Marko Popovic was putting together a good run for the visitors, which ended in only 7 points deficit after his second 3-pointer. Aleksa Popovic was the best scorer for Budućnost on the night with 14. He succeeded to again reduce the deficit to 7, but MZT had restored the lead to 12 points at the end of the third period. But Budućnost struck back in the last quarter as the Montenegro champion had closed the gap to just 2 points. But then Sinovic scored an all-important three for the home team, and when Otašević added his three-pointer just 30 seconds before the end of the game, the second win of the season had been secured for MZT, as was the second defeat for Budućnost. The Pioneer Hall was the venue of the replay of the last season's Final Four semi-final between Crvena Zvezda and still undefeated Radnički, but it was clear from the onset that it is not going to stay that way for long. Boban Marjanović had a good game. He scored 6 of Zvezda's first 10 points, reaching 17 and 8 rebounds in the end. The Marcus Nelson made it 18-11, and when Jaka Blažić scored for 3 in the last second of the first period, it has ended 22-11. Blake Shield was last year's MVP of the French League. He scored to make it 12 plus for Zvezda, and it was 15 when Aleksandar Cvetković scored for 3. It was all Zvezda at the time. Jenkins made it to plus 20, and by the time Marjanović rounded up a 12-0 run, it was already plus 27 for the Belgrade team. The end result of the first half was 44-21 when Sava Lesic scored as the last player of the half. Muftau Yaru had a good game in the visitors' ranks, reaching a double-double with 11 points and 14 rebounds, but that was also true for the MVP of last year's Serbian league, Branko Lazic, who struck from distance to keep Radnički still at distance. Jaka Blažić laid up for an incredible plus 35 for Zvezda. That was followed by Branko Lazic's coast-to-coast to make it plus 37 for the host. Nothing really changed in the last quarter. The home team's lead was far too big for any significant chance of a turnaround. With the victory in hand, Zvezda's coach Dejan Radonjic understandably gave a chance to a couple of younger players. Dusan Ristic scored 4 in his 6 minutes of play. Radnički took advantage of that, came to minus 25 after Nikola Jevtovic had scored, but from then on Radnički only scored 1 point and Zvezda 13. In the end, 88-51 to Crvena Zvezda, second win of the season for the team from Belgrade, and the first and quite heavy defeat for the team from Kragujevac. Pecada was the venue where Široki hosted, interestingly enough, a last-placed Olimpija. The home team had already beaten the season's biggest favorite Crvena Zvezda there, while Olimpija had recorded 2 humiliating defeats against Skopje and Cibona. The first quarter was rounded up by 18-14 when Toni Katic scored this incredible basket. The new highest lead of 9 was set up by Boris Barac and his 5 consecutive points. Barac was quite an enigma for the team from Ljubljana, as he went on to score 11 points in a row to make it plus 13 for Široki. The end result of the first half was 36-27. When Cody Augusta scored 3, Olimpija had drawn nearer to just 7 points, but it was Barac's all-around performance which took him to a double-double of 22 points and 10 rebounds. Here he is dunking to restore Široki's lead back to 12, and Pipan was forced to take a timeout. The end result of the 3 periods was set by Sasu Salin. The Finn had picked up where he left off, and when he hit another 3, it was officially a good start of the last quarter for the visitors, but they had soon blown 2 very good chances to get even nearer, which was readily punished by the hosts. Petrovic scoring to make it 56-46. After a nice slam dunk from Alex Stevenson, the gap was again close to 6. 3.5 minutes till the end, Dragiša Drobnjak scored to close it even further, which he had repeated 2 minutes later to put the guests just 2 points behind. 20 seconds before the end, Gailius had missed an open shot to put the teams even, but then Toni Katic on the other side missed both free throws. But the ball was then collected by Ivan Buva, and it was his turn to take to the free throw line. Incredibly enough, he also missed both, and that paved the way for Joksimovic to put things level just 4 seconds before the end. But somehow Široki had managed to score in the remaining time and to reach its second victory of the season, condemning Olympia to a third straight defeat. Two winless teams crossed swords in Smederevo Mega Vizura and last year's best team of the regular season Igokea, for which Nemanja Gordic played his first game. The first one to score was Serbia national team player Nemanja Krstic. But it was the visitors who reached the first significant lead of the game when Branko Jorovic hit a three to make it 12-7. That was followed by Mega's timeout. It seemed to have worked as Mega Vizura took the lead through Vasilije Micic, who had 20 points on the night. It was then Steinberger's turn to score 5 in a row to put Igokea 6 in front, but that was reduced to 4 by the end of the quarter. The first lead for the home team in the second period was secured by Jokic, and when Nemanja Dangubic hit a three, it had put Mega 4 points in front. That was followed by a very first basket for his new team by Nemanja Gordic. The end result of the first half was set by Duško Bunic 43-40 after the first 20 minutes of play. Ratko Varda was the first one to score in the second half, and by that securing a highest lead for the home team thus far, but the initiative was quickly handed over to the guests, as they have put together a fruitful run which ended with Siniša Steinberger scoring to make it 67-56 after 3 quarters of play. Steinberger was also the first one to score in the last period. With his three-pointer, the lead had grown to 14 points. That was raised to 17 when Paukovic rounded up a 13-0 run. Nenad Miljenovic was helpful in cutting the deficit to 10 points, but then Uroš Nikolic and Boris Bakic made sure that Igokea again raced away to a 17-point lead, and that was the end of it. A third defeat of the season for the rookie team, and at last a win for Igokea. So here are the results. Cedevita continues its winning run. Surprising wins maybe for Skopje and Krka. Also surprising is the heavy defeat for Radnički in Belgrade. Cedevita remains the only one without defeat so far. The only teams still without triumph are Union Olimpija and Mega Vizura. Most valuable player of the third round was 36-year-old Todor Gečovski. He had a playing index of 39, 27 points in his 29 minutes of play against Budućnost, 19-11 his field goals, 10 rebounds, 3 assists and 2 blocks for the Macedonian national team player. So let's take a look at the 5 best actions of the round. Number 5 is this basket on the buzzer by Zvonko Buljan of Krka. This is a very nice slam dunk from Boris Barac in the game of Široki against Olympia. Third place, alley-oop for Crvena Zvezda, finished by Marko Simonovic. At number 2, this is rarely seen, from his own half, on the buzzer, Toni Katic for Široki. And the best action of the round was this great offensive rebound, followed by a slam dunk from Luka Lapornik. This is the schedule of the 4th round. It's again gonna be very interesting indeed in the ABA League. Stay with us. Bye bye for now.